Today's episode is brought to you by the cities of Houston and Philadelphia. Welcome to the Overwatch League, boys.
Drop the beat.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to High Noon Podcast, the competitive Overwatch podcast. I am your host, The Blevins. With me, as always, is Death Blow. What's up, buddy?
Not too much, man. How are you?
Doing well, doing well. We've got a lot to talk about and not a ton of time to talk about it because this is going to be our last episode of having our interviews jammed into one super episode. So we made a decision as co-hosts and also polled the community on our now public Discord server about what people wanted to hear, if they wanted to hear super episodes or if they wanted to hear two different episodes, one being solely for the interview. And we have decided that the sole interview episodes are going to live on. So they won't count towards our number, so we're not going to be at like episode 830 next episode. They'll just be like half episodes, or maybe they'll be their own series. I don't know. We'll figure
the
it out.
length is definitely going to vary on them as the conversations and the will be varying in relevance as we have them with people. So
right.
We'll just kind of keep an open mind with them and just kind of talk for as long as makes sense for the conversation and as long as is comfortable for the guest, depending on their time schedule, things like that. So
yeah, they could be 30 minutes, they could be upwards of an hour and a half, 2 hours if they wanted to do it and the conversation was going. Yeah, so we're gonna run through that. Also, if you guys are watching either on YouTube or watching live, you can look down below and see our new little match ticker, ESPN style little news ticker down there. So that's pretty sweet. I believe that was Thorn Rain who came up with that idea, or yeah, I believe so. It was Thorn Rain. So yeah. Hope you guys like it. If there's anything you ever want to see in there, like the type of stuff you want to see in there, let us know. We're still testing it out. It might look a little wonky, but we've got the bones of it in. We're gonna tweak and make everything look better to come. So that's all the housekeeping we've got. Let's move right along to what did we do last week. Death, do you want to start us off?
Sure can, yeah. So what didn't I do last week, I think is basically what happened. I mean, nothing important, but just so many things.
A pretty sweet interview on
Sunday, but yeah, it was good.
See, look at that.
I only know because I didn't mark it down in my calendar and double booked myself and made a huge mess of it. But obviously football's back, which means that I am glued to it anytime it's on TV. How can it be a bad week when you leave it with the Patriots at the worst, last place in the division, tied with the New York Jets and the Buffalo Bills at number 1 in the division? How does it get better than that? It clearly doesn't.
It certainly won't.
It won't. No, it definitely won't. Anybody out there, calm down. I don't have any delusions. I still don't think I have a playoff team on my hands here or anything. So save me your tweets or your Discord messages is where I get most of them.
Sports channel that we made.
Yes, we did. So if you want to come make fun of me for being a Bills fan, that is Discord is definitely the place to do that. But yeah, so I did a lot of that. I went down to Erie, played in another Clash Royale tournament that you just refused to attend because you hate GameCore, I think is basically your stance.
It's, you literally told me about it the day before it happened, and don't say that I'm in some group that I never check either, because
that's how I found out about it, and I talked to the guy that ran it on a daily basis. And I also don't use Facebook. So so I won some money playing Clash Royale. I got to visit with my buddies down in Pennsylvania. Always a really good time. And other than that, team practices, scrims, things like that. And obviously had a big, long weekend of Overwatch tournaments.
Yes, nice, jam-packed weekend. So for me, I actually finished my placements. So the beard bet is off the table. I am in. I am ranked. Placements are played. All is well with the world. I did not place very well. I didn't do very well either.
Plat count? Does it count as finishing your placements game?
Well,
Or do
if
you
I
wish
were,
you were in Plat?
I wish I was in Plat. It's like Plat. If Plat doesn't count, that's fine because I'm not Plat.
My lowest meme account, Blevins, is in Diamond, and I don't know that I can queue with you. What are you at? What's the number?
What was that? No, nothing. I'm at 20, like almost 2,200, 21 and change.
It's a big maybe.
It's a big maybe.
Big maybe that I'm even allowed to play with you anymore.
Yeah. That's this is what I've done to myself. A, I'm bad. B, everyone I play with is bad as well because I'm bad. But no, honestly, I think I finished 4, 5, and 1. Pretty abysmal. And I just didn't even play particularly well.
Only you could manage a draw still. I can't even remember my last draw.
Yeah, I'm trying to think why it happened. I think it was Numbani. I was
going to say it was a 2CP or a hybrid and just like the first point stall. Like it definitely happens. It's just it doesn't happen in scrims because like in scrims after the first round, like you don't even finish the map, you just leave.
Right.
So it's been so long since I've done much ranked even that I haven't drawn in forever.
Yeah, I think it was actually one of those like feels good to get a draw ones where it's like we just failed horribly at the beginning and then we managed to pull off a great defense, so it felt good because it was going to be a loss.
Right.
In my mind it was a loss, but so yeah, that was that. I got placed basically exactly where I deserved to be placed, and everyone should actually hold on. Let's just shame bell me.
Shame.
For that. I'll give it to myself.
Shame.
Yeah, much deserved shame bell, but I did at the very least play. So the beard lives on for another season.
Thankfully, we're not about giving strategy advice. That's all I'll say for our listeners. Just you guys should be very thankful we don't give strategy advice.
Well, that I don't give strategy
well,
advice.
You know me. I'm not going to give myself any credit for anything.
You actually do. You have your VOD review videos, which are quite good. But the other thing I did was I was actually I guest hosted or I guess guest star. I don't know how you want to put it. I was on the Payload podcast. So check that out. The guys over at the Payload were kind enough to have me on. We talked about all sorts of stuff going on in the weekend. It was a blast. So thank you to the Payload folks, and check them out. Yeah, so that should be good. But let's move on to what did you guys do last week. First piece of news is that our friend of the show and now contributor to the show, Thornrain, we actually, right before we went live, posted his new article about
the Open Division and its flaws.
Yeah, the shortcomings of the Open Division. A really good look at that. It's one of those things that it came out at the same time as like Contenders, and like everything was announced in Overwatch League. It's like, ooh, this is like the minor leagues. This is going to be awesome. We're going to set up this system, and it's kind of flopped. Won't spoil too much. Definitely give that a read. It's over at highnoonpodcast.com, and shout outs to Thornrain for doing that. Hopefully we can see, some follow-up, A, from Blizzard in terms of their shortcomings, and B, continued coverage of that from Thornrain. So huge shout-outs to him for that. The other piece...
you can find that article over on highnoonpodcast.com/blog. Just head on over to the blog section of the website. You can just go to the main page, click the button, and find it there. I just want to make sure everybody knows where exactly to find that.
Yes, good call there. We've got another piece of continued, almost internal drama. Not internal drama. That sounds like it's between us, but drama that in some way affects us.
We're creating it.
Yeah, we're creating it. Yeah,
we'll create the drama. We're not a part of it, but we're creating it.
Yeah. So in our boycott Instagram feud, no real resolution to that other than Overwatch Today still exists. He's still Overwatch Today on Twitter, and his new Instagram account is Game Watch Today. So head on over to Instagram, follow Game Watch Today. As always, follow Overwatch Today on Twitter. That was unaffected. Twitter is still a usable service. Instagram, not so much. But if you're going to use Instagram, go follow Game Watch Today.
Yes, and if you're, you know what? Go out there and delete your Instagram app. And when they ask you why, tell them why. Yeah. Tell them because we sent you, because we want Overwatch Today back, and then go ahead and reinstall it, and then follow Game Watch Today.
Yeah, it's just malarkey. It's just absolutely malarkey.
Yes.
But speaking of which, let's move on to my very favorite segment of the show.
Overwatch Today, meme of the week.
Instagram can't get me to change that, mostly because I'm not re-recording it. I'm calling it Overwatch Today meme of the week regardless. I'm not calling it Game Watch Today. I would call it Overwatch Tomorrow, which if you don't already own that Overwatch Big Fish, you should definitely get Overwatch Tomorrow. It's amazing. But OWT came in the clutch, and of course, it had been too many weeks with me not picking an I Need Healing meme. With Destiny 2 out, we've got some new armor and skins, and there's one where the knee pad looks it actually looks just like Genji.
To be fair, it's Genji's face. It's not like it looks like Genji.
Yeah,
it's
it
like
actually is Genji's
even in the
face.
far back version, you're like, what's Genji's face doing on his knee?
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, so that's not even like a stretch. It's not. It's like literally just they took Genji's helmet and put it on the kneecap, and it says "I need healing." So of course I had to pick that. Why in the world would I not? Yeah. So definitely, just to wrap up on that, go follow Game Watch Today. It's where we're still gonna be continuing the segment. Overwatch Today, still doing the podcast and the Instagram, all that good stuff. Keep in contact with him, but. Let's cruise right along over to...
It's tournament talk.
Do a little bit of tournament talk. We've got actually, I know it's been a while. We've been focusing almost exclusively on contenders for good reason. I'm not gonna try to say this is a bad thing that we're only focusing on contenders. It's awesome, but we do have an update from Apex, as many of you know, our absolutely favorite tournament to watch for 10,000 weeks in a row. We've got the playoffs. The playoff brackets are set after what seemed like 300 weeks of group stages. We finally have the playoffs, which I'm sure will be another 300 to 500 years. But we do have those. So in the upper bracket, we've got Condu Panthera versus Combox in the first round. We also have Luxury Watch Red and NC Foxes in the upper bracket. And then in the lower, okay, I don't even know how, I think it's two different brackets. The second bracket might not be up, it's not upper and lower. The second bracket, we've got X6 versus Runaway, and we've got Lunatic High versus GC Busan.
Yeah, they break up into like a second group stage and kind of play out some finals there, and then two teams from each group stage qualifies to go on to the final playoffs. So it's two separate brackets.
Yes. Okay. Well, I guess you could still call one. Upper and lower gives the wrong impression. But those are the teams. We will be giving you probably similarly length updates every week. We can also check them out down below in the match ticker because we will be updating it with the results and whatnot. But that's all we're going to give to that for now because we, as we've mentioned before, don't get to watch too much Apex because it's on at like 3 in the morning for us. No is the answer to that.
Already a lot of work to keep up on the VODs from the EU and the NA action, so we had to draw the line somewhere, and that was right around the border between Europe and Asia.
Yeah, I mean, the difference is that the Asia time zone, we are in bed. The Europe time zone, we are at work, and we are much more likely to watch something during one of those than the other. We're much more likely to give up one of those for Overwatch, and it's not sleep. But let's move right along to the EU contenders. Had a couple of interesting matches here, some of which we noticed the implications of after the fact.
Yeah, like I can't tell you how many times I looked at this results page and completely overlooked one because the outcome was just so out of this world unexpected to me that my brain refused to process it basically until I was typing it into the match ticker. Because as you guys know, if you've been listening for long enough that you were with us for the last football season, I don't get to watch everything anymore once football's on. So I have to cherry pick a little bit, and this week going out of town was no exception. So, but looking at the EU action here, we had to start things out. These aren't necessarily in order. They're in the order that Winston's lab displays them. So, but to start us out at least, Team Gigante defeated Cloud9 3-1, really on a tear. As we also, I'm going to jump around a little bit even in this order because so many of these teams played twice that it just makes sense to list them.
Yeah.
But Gigante also defeated 1-2-3 with a score of 3-1. So the same score, not sweeping maps, but these are pretty closely contested matchups in my book here. Gigante, obviously a surging team, looks really, really strong lately. So I think I would have picked them to beat Cloud9.
Yeah.
But I would not have picked them to beat 1-2-3. So a big result for them there. Make sure you check out that VOD to see exactly how that happened.
And that was one of the ones that I actually definitely didn't skip work. I was on lunch break when I was watching that. But I did get a chance to check that out. It was actually quite close for a lot of the match. It was just after a while we just saw I believe Linkser just came out and just put his pants on and just really crushed a lot of those points where it seemed like they might not have won it. It was a little bit sloppy in some cases. I'm thinking of Eichenwald especially. There's a point where they almost didn't even or they almost full held the defense and then they just gave up way more than they should have, but then they came back and won. For what it's worth, Team Gigante winning both of their matches this week surged them up to second place in the standings when they were, I believe, tied in the 4th, 5th spot. So they're sitting pretty right now. It was. I mean, they could have easily went 1-1 and still had to really sweat it this next week, or went 0-2 and potentially either been out or really needed to play a win in. But they're sitting pretty right now. I don't know off the top of my head who their
remaining matches are?
Who their remaining matches are.
So in 4 days they play against Singularity, and then they only have one more match after that, and that is against Bazooka Puppies. So, really, their tough matches are behind them. They dropped to Misfits, but going forward, it kind of get to be an easy mode a little bit here, and maybe, I mean, we're going to talk about Singularity in a minute, but that one might not be as easy mode as we thought because there's a surprising upset coming up later that we'll talk about there. But yeah, it's definitely the bottom of the bracket is what they have to face, right? At least the bottom of the bracket that doesn't have huge name recognition and make you think it's going to, there's a decent chance that United rebounds and gives them a fight. But so I don't know. It's definitely got the inside track here to make it into the playoffs. I think we can just about lock them in, even if it's not mathematical. They should be able to dispatch at least Bazooka Puppies with no problem, as they are still 0-5, I believe. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think even if, they might even be mathematically, and I can't figure it out in my head because I'm too stupid just by looking at it right now and not knowing that everyone else is who else.
I'm very used to doing it for football brackets, and I don't know why it's so difficult for.
And I used to be able to do it for Magic tournaments too, but no.
Right? Oh yeah, the amount of math we did trying to figure out if we could draw into Magic tournaments was ridiculous.
Just got to secondhand nature, but for this, it's only 8 teams. Just too stupid. Give up.
Yeah,
they're probably mathematically locked, but.
If not, they're all but.
They're all but. Yeah, they need to lose both and then have like something crazy happen probably. But.
Yeah. But yeah, so I mean, just while we're talking about the matches coming up, EU's starting to look a little bit figured out, but there are some matchups here that we definitely have to keep an eye on. We got 1-2-3 still has to play against Gamers Origins. Misfits has to play against 1-2-3. We have 1-2-3 and Cloud9. 1-2-3's got all the tough matchups still. Those poor guys, and especially coming off that loss now too.
Yeah, they're right on the cusp.
So it's going to be a rough road for them, but I cannot wait to watch them try and pull it off. 1-2-3 does play Cloud9, who's below them. So, in Gamers Origins being below them, they have the teams on their schedule that are trying to chase them, which is kind of nice, right? Because all you have to do is get the job done against, those two teams, and the rest should fall into place for them. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. But yeah, 1-2-3 versus Cloud9, Gamers Origins versus Cloud9. Gamers Origins versus 1-2-3, all it's like those 3 teams that are all right there vying for the 3 and the 4 spot all still have to play against each other. So the rest of it, it sure looks like Misfits going to be number one. I don't think Gigante is going to be able to catch them in that regard. But 1, 2, 3 can help.
They're just probably not going to.
Yeah, it's possible. But Gigante's like lost maps, all right? Like they've been human in their in their wins. So that's going to make it very difficult.
Only 12-8 in maps. It's really not.
Yeah, that's not staggering when you compare it, especially to Misfits with just one more overall match win at 19-2. I mean, it seems very, very unlikely.
You look at 1, 2, 3, who has a better map record than Team Gigante, right, but has one fewer win. So
just played one less game, and so that really kind of makes up for it, because if 1, 2, 3 in their big match against Misfits gets 4-0'd, then they're in exactly the same.
Right.
So it'll be really interesting, and that's kind of makes these even harder to analyze and look at and go, are they locked in or not? Because they're not all in the same boat, and they're not all with the same number of games played. Definitely confuses things a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, those 3, 4, 5, and 6 are all vying, and honestly, I think there's even 2 and 7 are still not mathematically in or out, so there's still a lot of play here. I believe someone before did the math. Misfits is in, Bazooka Puppies is out. Just a quick look at Bazooka Puppies, like no one can be X5 that's in right now. Right. No one that's in right now can drop down below X5, and that's as good as Bazooka Puppies can get. So Bazooka Puppies is out, Misfits is in. It's going to be interesting. I mean, 3, 4, 5, 6 definitely have a lot of play left. 2 and 7 don't get to sit back this last week. They still have to play too.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because you'd think these teams that are kind of like United were like, well, they're pretty much out, right? But they're not out because they're not mathematically eliminated, and they're a good team. And it's just kind of crazy, right? Because it looks so bad for them right now, but yet, as a Bills fan, I promise you guys, it takes a long time, even for the bad teams, to become mathematically eliminated from contention. Yep. So we'll keep an eye out.
We hear about it
for
all
that.
The time. And not to mention the fact that all of these players individually still need to put their best face on every week for scouts and prospecting purposes. So
yeah, well, in this crazy week of EU matchups where only the teams that got to play twice managed to win any games at all throughout this weekend. Yeah. We're going to move on here and talk a little bit about Misfits, as they did play against Bazooka Puppies and 4-0 them, which is great. You got to take care of the opponents that you're supposed to beat. But more importantly was their matchup against Gamers Origin, I should say, which went 3-2 to Misfits. So a really, really close game. I believe in that matchup, if I'm not mistaken, this wasn't we went to 5 maps. It's we drew 1, so both teams won a map, and that's why we have a total of 5 in the scoreboard here. But a really closely contested matchup anyways. Misfits definitely, to my eye, looked like the better team, and Gamers Origins struggled a little bit. It almost seems to me, and I don't know if you got this impression when you watched this one, Blevins, but it almost seems to me like teams are starting to figure out not even Doomfist so much as Leaf, right? Like he's put so much on tape and on camera with this tournament so far of the Doomfist in just about every scenario, right? When they debuted it, they ran nothing else. And it almost seems a little bit like teams are starting to get their numbers some. One spot in particular, I believe they played on Ilios, and it was the University map, Oasis University. I'm sorry, not Ilios. And they played like the right room on that minor health pack, and they really just wanted anybody from Misfits to come in there and just get charged by a Doomfist punch. And Misfits just refused to enter that room, and eventually they got the first pick because they were just spamming the doorways and things like that, and managed to just whittle somebody down and take them out. So it's something to keep an eye on going forward. Obviously, Leaf is far and away the best Doomfist player out there, but I thought initially that Doomfist might be easy to counter, and if he's already being solved and figured out, maybe that's a sign that he is in fact a little on the easier side to counter, and maybe he's best used as a surprise pick, not something you roll out as a default. But we'll have to wait and see. It's something I'm watching develop because it's the new hero, and this is the best guy on it, and the team that we didn't expect to do much in this tournament is surging and in the top 4 and competing with Cloud9 and 1, 2, 3 and all these other teams for these spots. So it's something definitely to keep an eye on and look out for going forward. But for the time being, at least, I don't want to judge it too harshly because it was Misfits after all. Who's beating them? Nobody. So we might just have to chalk it up to that and just say that the best team is the best team.
Right. I do think the best team is the best team, but also, like, the Doomfist impact was never going to be as much as it was that first week, right? Like, unless the teams are literally just like, nope, it's a fluke, we're not even going to try, we're not even going to dignify Doomfist with an answer. Like, they're going to be like, okay, just don't do that. It's like that comedy sketch where there's like a shark in the pool and they're like, oh my God, there's a shark in the pool. And the guy's just like, just don't go in the pool. They're like, oh God, it's eating everyone. It's like, just don't go in the pool. like Doomfist is the shark. Like, just don't go in the pool. You can figure it out, at least at a high level. I do think Leaf is still the best Doomfist player, and he's still going to be able to outplay in a lot of positions. But that huge, like, oh God, we just got completely wrecked by Doomfist, probably not going to happen to a competent team.
No, and maybe Gamers Origin just needs to tweak their approach a little bit. Maybe you don't sit in that room and wait for them to come to you. Because if they're not coming, they're not coming. Go to them. You know, get a Reinhardt in front and let him just walk very slowly at the team and wait for them to back into an awkward corner and then go. Right. So you can counter the counter just as much as you can counter the original problem. Right. So it's a chess match for sure. We'll have to watch it.
Right. The pendulum swings back into Leafs court, even though that's two analogies put together. But the other thing I'll mention is that I got a better look at the Bazooka Puppies Misfits match, and even though it was a 4-0, it didn't feel like a 4-0 while they were playing. The actual maps themselves were much closer than the 4-0 would lead you to believe. Granted, Bazooka Puppies is at 0-5, so what does it really say? What I really think it says is that as a team owner or team manager or someone who's doing prospecting, I would not steer clear necessarily from the Bazooka Puppies because there is talent there. They did put up a fight against Misfits, even though the map score would not lead you to believe that. So
yeah, it confirms they belong here. Just when just looking at the box score and the standings doesn't do that. They're definitely a coherent team. They've been around. They're not new. They've been around a little while now. But everything's been so crazy in this scene lately that the teams that have just kind of sat still and run the course before the league with the rosters they have, I think have kind of lost out. Right? It's funny. We spent a long time a while ago talking about team synergy, and then nobody's been valuing team synergy. Like, everybody's been changing like crazy. There's turnover at the top level just as much as at the bottom. Envy's not the same 6 they were for forever. Yeah. Immortals split up and brought in some Korean talent. I mean, there's been just about zero exceptions. Misfits is another example. They were all what country are they from? You know,
Sweden.
Off the top of your head. Yeah, they were an all Swedish team, and now that's not the case anymore. So they've diversified and made some changes. So the teams that have stuck together, honestly, the only one I can think of is the United. And how are they doing right now?
Not so great.
No, granted they're historically a little inconsistent, but yeah, they've been one of the bigger teams that have made the fewer moves, I feel like, and I could just be completely forgetting roster moves they've made, but I don't think so, at least for the time being. So yeah, I don't know. It's crazy going forward, but one thing I will say is the league, the way it's set up, contracts are for 1 year with an option for a second. So a year is a long time for an esports roster to stay together, but at the same time, it's not too long. You know what I mean? Like, it's not the most time, and we'll have to wait and see. I don't know the rosters that I don't know that I want to know. Maybe if they had turnover is like Lunatic High, what their roster situation's been, what that stability's been like. But again, we don't keep super close tabs on the Korean scene. We just watch the players and watch what we can.
Consistently similar, but
and struggling too.
Yeah, also struggling. So, I mean, we'll see. We're definitely going to see what the dynamic is in terms of changes and whatnot for the league. I think we've seen teams gain the ability to do better with team synergy, but we're past that point as an ecosystem, right? Like, you need to have the right team now. It's not just have a team that's together, it's have the right team that's together. So we're starting to see that stagnate a little bit, but
Yeah, but we do got to pick things up a little bit, so we got time to bring you guys the interview. We have, let's see, 2 more matches from the EU side of things, and Singularity is the common player team in both of these matches,
Out of
and with
nowhere.
with 4-0 wins over E United and Bazooka Puppies. This doesn't tell me. I mean, Singularity is a team just in complete turmoil and just complete shakeup. Like there's a lot of roster moves going on there. And we're not 100% sure. I'm trying to look at things here. Anyways, yeah. So I did not get to see any of their matchups yet this weekend, so I'm not 100% sure how similar the roster is to what it was last week. So hopefully we can have, we'll touch on that a little bit more once we get to their matches next week, as I'll definitely be fully caught up on this weekend's action by then, and also I shouldn't be so busy that I get so far behind like I did last weekend. So hopefully I'll be fully up to date by the time we record next week, and we'll have to kind of revisit that to figure out exactly what's going on. I don't want to say it's a huge shock because honestly I don't know who played for him. All I know is there was a lot of shakeups with some of the bottom end teams, but suddenly they're not super far behind Cloud9 right now in the standings, and they're sitting at 6, 2 big wins for them. E United is probably the most telling team that we're going to talk about here today on the EU side, just because, I mean, what is going on there? Like, if they're not beating a team that was thrown together for last week and played poorly, and even if they completely rebuilt and retooled, like, a team like E United can't be losing, I would say, maps against teams that are being thrown together last minute to compete for a tournament. So really, really shocking result there. I haven't seen it to know what's going on, like I said, so we'll reserve full comment. But my apologies, United fans. Like, you had so much to root for going into this tournament, and you've been let down hard. So we'll keep an eye on them going forward. But I would say it's a pretty safe bet that they might have been one of those teams I would have thought had a chance to go into the league staying together as a 6 going into this tournament, and now there's no way, right? Like, who would do that?
Complete flop, I guess you would call it.
Yeah, like, you just can't spend $20 million and then more to pay the players itself for a team that's struggling so bad when you sign them. It just doesn't make sense. I'm sure they could rebound if they had time, but not a lot of weeks left. Like, they can't change the roster now, and everything's locking. And then after this, I expect the full court press to be on for the league to begin.
Right. At this point, I mean, the players, I can't imagine want to stay as 6. Like, they're worth way more individually than they are as 6 when they've had this sort of performance. So, but
they should be.
Yeah, for sure. Just a recap before we go into NA. We've got Misfits in first, followed by Team Gigante, 1, 2, 3, Gamers Origins, Cloud9, Singularity, United, and Bazooka Puppies. Again, those 3 through 6, 100% are all live to either make it or break it, and then 2 and 7 are offshoots, and then 1 and 8 are locked. So I don't know if Contenders, I gotta say, has been set up really nicely. This is like, I think, one of the first leagues we've covered that a continuous league that has had top talent and also has remained has had storylines and actually remained like exciting every week. Usually it's like, okay, well, the teams that the top 3 teams that didn't play against each other beat the teams that they should have, and everyone else lost. Okay, let's move on. Envious won that tournament. Okay, let's move on to something else.
And shout outs to the schedulers too. I mean, they couldn't have done it too much on purpose, but just the fact that we still have 1, 2, 3 to play against Misfits, Cloud9, and Gamers Origin, still, like, the 3 teams they're locked into a fight with. Like, the fact that that's all still live is a really, really good job. So they did a great job, scheduling everything out and spreading out the truly on paper exciting matches. And I feel like we've had them every week. And shout outs to the teams too. What week have we not had a huge upset that, like, melted our brains a little bit and changed our viewpoint on at least one of the 2 teams involved in it pretty drastically, and it's been every single week.
But let's move on to the NA side. We're starting to see some distinction here. Teams, I don't know, I think we're building up to something here for sure, but we'll talk about the actual matches. So this was the single week for NA, I guess you'd call it. We saw FNRG FE take out Immortals 3-1. So Immortals all but out here at 05. I mean, it's been the same story that we've been talking. And we actually, like we alluded to earlier, we are interviewing the team manager from Immortals. We've already done the interview, but you will be hearing the interview. We're posting the interview at the end of this episode, so stay tuned to that. It is with the Josh Kim. It's actually one of the most fun interviews I've done so far, so definitely check that one out. But Immortals all but out here. Again, I don't think I would have picked them being at 05 5 matches in. I don't know how many people
Absolutely zero people would have. All that them being at 05 tells me that I didn't already not know from the previous weeks is that they haven't played against Renegades yet. That's clearly what's going on. Like, that's going to be the Browns versus the Jets, or I don't know. I'm just trying to think of two terrible teams. Like, that's going to be your toilet bowl instead of your Super Bowl. Yeah. And that's surprising in its own right, because Immortals, the season 0 champions, really fallen from grace here. Yeah. FNRGFE keeping themselves alive. They're in the 4 spot, right there, only one map ahead of Kungarna, and it's a drawn map, right? Like, they drew a map where Kungarna lost a map, which gives them the extra win. And yeah, that one doesn't mathematically have to be a draw. That could definitely just be an extra round. But either way, that's really the race here, right? Is like, we've got tier 1 Envious by themselves, tier 1B. I'm not calling it tier 2. Tier 1B is Envision and FaZe. And then you have the next group, which is competing, and then the last group, which is out. And FNRGFE, Kungarna, and Rogue are the ones really, really vying for their lives here. Like, they're trying to stay alive in this tournament, and it's really unfortunate for Rogue, because they've got that extra match already, and they're at the back end. So they seem like a long shot to me. Looking at their matchup, they still have to play Envious. They still have to play Kungarna, and I think that's it. Yeah, so that wraps up their event, and those aren't tough to. I mean, it's great to be able to play against the team ahead of you that you're competing with in Kungarna. That gives them a real opportunity to jump one spot. But they're almost certainly going to, I mean, you're struggling as bad as they are. I can't imagine they beat Envious. Though going into the tournament, I would have said one of the best teams, one of the teams with the best chances, not anymore.
One of the only teams in recent history to have beaten them at all.
Yeah, they've got it on their resume. So I guess, they still have a puncher's chance in that tournament. It's not like I think Renegade's going against Envious, where I wouldn't even give them a puncher's chance.
Well, they're mathematically out too.
So. Yeah, and they're mathematically out. So how motivated are they going to be for the final match against the best team, when you have every reason to it's okay to lose, kind of, right? Like,
I was going to say that's not necessarily true, but then I realized they have 19 math losses, so never mind. They're out. Even with the tiebreakers, they're out. Honestly, I mean, if Rogue can somehow 2-0 their matches here, puts them at 4-3, one of those matches is against Envious, and then, if Kungarna and FNRGFE 0-3, then they're definitely in. Actually, Kungarna and FNRG,
it might be possible, because I don't think, other than Rogue playing against Kungarna, I don't think the 3 teams that are competing for this overlap any more than that. I think they've already played those games.
Right.
So it might very well be possible, but if no, it can't be, right? Because Rogue only has 2 matches left, and either Kungarna or Rogue have to win, which would put them at 3 wins, and Immortals can't get 3 wins because they only have 2 matches left.
Yeah, they're out for sure. The only thing I'm thinking is if Rogue 2-0s and then the other teams all lose as much as they can without playing against each other, Rogue can make it. So.
Oh yeah. Rogue is still alive, but a bit of an uphill climb for sure. I'm sorry, I thought we were looking at Immortals.
No. Immortals and Renegades are both out.
Yeah.
Even though they could still technically, like, FNRG FE could fall out and Kungarna could lose out, and they'd both have 5 losses. Like,
Immortals can get to the
maybe
5
not.
seed, but they cannot get to the 4 seed.
Yeah,
I think
it
it's the
doesn't
way
matter.
the math works out.
Yeah, they're both mathematically out, regardless. Even if they can tie the record, the map record is going to put them below anyone anyway that they could possibly tie. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Rogue has an uphill battle, and then FNRGFE Kungarna is definitely going to be contested. And I mean, FaZe could theoretically even dip down too.
Yeah, and FNRGFE might be sitting on top, but they still have to play Envy. Because let's look at who Envy has to play, right? They have to play Rogue and FNRGFE. So doesn't that just automatically...
They have to play Envision too.
Who?
Envy. Envy has to play Envision.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Okay,
that's the match I was talking
Envision.
about. This is what we're looking for here because we need to see how good Envision really is. That's going to be the match of the tournament before the playoffs.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be. I really hope it turns out to be the final, though. We'll have to wait and see. Envision has a long road to go for a team that, I mean, despite their record, like as impressive as it is, they're not proven yet, right? Like they're not on the LAN environment. Well, that's a whole different ball game that we have not seen them do yet, and that's something Envy's done. That's something I believe FaZe has done, and that's something that at least the players on FNRGFE have done. I don't know that the team's done it as a whole, but plenty of the players on FNRGFE, I'm just Fenergaphy. All the players there are, on
they
World Cup
experience
somewhere. Right. Yeah, like they've done that before. So it'll be great to see Envision do it, but that's going to be a true test for them.
Right.
But moving on here a little bit, speaking of Envision, they played against Kungarna, and that was one of the matches that we kind of circled previously, right? There's one of those Envision matchups that are going to tell us a lot, and it just made the Envy matchup that much more compelling because I would have picked Envision to win this because I've been that impressed with them, would not have picked them to 4-0 it. A really, really great result there. I actually started watching this before I knew the result, and I was like, because I just assumed it would be a good match, right? Like I definitely wanted to see it, and I would watch it regardless of the score. But it was just, I mean, not very close. At least over the first couple maps, I definitely remember seeing Envision in dominating form. I want to say that the King of the Hill was a little close for like the first point, and then after that, it tilted away from him pretty fast. Envision just continuing to impress and looks really strong. If it wasn't for that LAN experience bug that makes me just a little nervous for them, I would probably be, really, really all in on the Envision roster here.
So do we say that if Envision wins the tournament, we buy Envision jerseys? Is that something we're...
I'm not going to buy a jersey for a non-Overwatch league.
That's true. Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
I'll just save my money and buy one in 2 months once all their brands are figured out and their jerseys are released.
Yeah, we'll buy whatever the Toronto team ends up being, if there is a Toronto team, which we hope there is. But unless there's a Buffalo team, that'd be sweet. But yeah, I mean, this was okay. Make me eat crow, if you will. I've been trying to defend Kungarna versus Envision this whole time because they basically had the flip-flopped schedule. Like Envision has been on a tear. Kungarna was doing well, but they played Envy first, so they lost first, and then Envision really set themselves apart because they played Rogue early before we kind of knew that Rogue had fallen from grace, so that was a huge thing. And Envision was riding the hype train. Kungarna very easily could have been riding that same hype train if their schedule had been different. Now Envision just kind of said, no, we're the real deal. These Kungarna guys are good, but they're not us. So congrats to Envision for that. I don't know if in recent history I've been more excited to see a match than Envision. I've not been the last time I was just excited to see Envy play against a team that I thought maybe had a chance to beat them or I wanted to see beat them was when Rogue was still on top, coming back from Korea and coming back from their hiatus, and then they actually beat Envy a couple of times, or at least once.
Well, you don't have to wait long because Sunday night, Envy versus Envision, Steel Cage,
Sunday,
the Super Mega Slam.
Yeah, it's going to be a 4-0, and we're going to be disappointed. But if, like you said, I think last week, if they take even a map, it's going to speak volumes.
to be fair, I won't be disappointed with a 4-0 because we talked about the other match. It didn't feel like a 4-0, right? Like the tournament format is, I mean, it does a good job of determining the best team between the two, but it does not necessarily always give you the best story about how the match went. It can be very, very close and look very lopsided. So, and even a 4-0 stomping, like even if Envision looks terrible, I now know, right? And it's going to tell me more about Envy, I think, than it does against Envision, because a lot of the Envy matches, they've been against, when they've been against the good teams and the big teams, really, except for outside of FaZe, the team they hit was struggling at the time. So when they play against Rogue, I don't want to see them play against Rogue if Rogue's playing poorly. I don't want to see them play against Immortals if they're not playing well. I want to see them play against teams that are playing their best. So, yeah, I think if Envy does 4-0 that in a decisive fashion, FaZe will be the only competitor in my mind, and I'll probably put a couple bucks on Envious, though the return won't be great.
Yeah, I mean, and then I think it just everything explodes in NA if Envision beats Envy.
Yes,
I think the whole thing is earth shattered, like literal Reinhardt ult on the entire NA scene if Envision beats Envious. All bets are off.
That would honestly send shockwaves through all the regions. I don't even think Korea would not be affected in some way by that. What would that signal to you? I mean, if it happens, right? Like if Envision wins, what does that signal to you? Does it mean Team Envy's fallen, or Envision? Maybe I guess it depends on what they're running, right? Like if they're just running basic dive comp, then
I think
you just have to go on skill
to get some really nice contracts and set up a really sweet deal for Overwatch League. Honestly.
Yeah, it might do a large bit of work in keeping that roster together going into the league. I mean, maybe not the tank spot that they've been musical chairsing their way through so far, but I mean, maybe they bring in the other 5 and then go get the best tank they can, because I gotta say, if I'm on the outside looking in, I wouldn't disagree with that. But just because then I know who's shot calling for him right now, it makes me so nervous that I don't know who's shot calling for him.
Apparently, it doesn't matter.
It really doesn't, I guess. So, we're definitely going to be keeping an eye on that, and I think you guys can all expect. You're noticing, I'm sure, we did away with the deep diving. We're going to go back to that once the interviews aren't tied into the episode. But for now, at least we're skipping them, and I think you can count on that being deep doven into next week.
Oh yeah. And then we'll round off the rest of NA, because there's really not pretty much the Envision talk was the bulk of NA for this one. FaZe beat Rogue 4-1, a crippled, decrepit Rogue, unfortunately, sadly for me, as they're one of the few teams I own a jersey for. The only team I own a jersey for that still exists is an Overwatch team currently.
Yeah, but one of them says your name on the back and your real name.
No,
it says your real, official birth certificate name.
Wrong name for sure.
Calm down, Belvins.
Oh God. And done. Show ended. And then Envious, unsurprisingly, won 4-0 versus Renegades. Really nothing to talk about there, other than, I mean, I don't think we've ever seen Envy not win those matches that they're supposed to win. Like, they are the king of, they win every single match that they're supposed to win, and they rarely give up maps that they're not supposed to give up.
Yeah, map wins against Envy are headlines when they come against softer opponents. That would be a huge red flag to me. Like, if Renegades had taken a map here, I would be betting on Envision for Sunday. I'll say that much.
So really, Renegades not getting a map just saved you a bunch of money.
It's true. I didn't even have to switch to Geico or anything.
Boo.
No regrets.
Boo. All right, I would shame bell you, but I'm too lazy.
I count on that.
That is going to be the tournament talk. Next week's going to be huge, because we are going to have that Envision Envy match to talk about, as well as this is the last week of Contenders, right? There's not another half week after, everything.
There's another week after this. We've got an NA, because we got an NA Super Week, and then we've got an EU Super Week, and then we're into the playoffs.
Oh, okay, that's right. Okay, so we do have a couple more weeks, but I think we're gonna have everything all but figured out for the. We're gonna have at least, I think, one other lock team for both NA and EU next week. And we might as well make an announcement here. Next week, the
first redo of the solo interview. I don't know. We screw things up and go back and forth. Yeah. The first new solo interview episode will be with Logix from Misfits. So we had a really great conversation with him 2 days ago, and we got a little bit of insight into how the matchup went with Gamers Origins. We gave him a pass. We didn't make him talk about Bazooka Puppies since they cruise there, but we did grill him a little bit on the Gamers Origins matchup and what makes Leaf so good and what makes that team work around Doomfist so well. So make sure you guys check that out, and also big thanks to you, Logix, for joining us for that. Hope you guys enjoy it.
Yeah, another really great interview, and as always, a huge shout out to A. Smith for setting that one up. Best booker NA, and shoot, and EU. But let's move right along.
Oh, let's break it down.
Break it down. We've got a couple of nice headlines this week. So as we alluded to in the opener of the show, we've got 2 new orgs and spots bought into for Overwatch League. We've got Team Optic buying a spot for Houston, and we've got Comcast Spectacor, aka the part of or some amount of the Philadelphia Flyers, or like the owning partner or whatever.
Yeah, the owning Flyers. Entity, the entity that owns the Philadelphia Flyers now owns the Philadelphia Overwatch.
Corporate
League.
overlord of Philadelphia Flyers has bought a Philadelphia location, which is another East Coast team that is about 8 hours from us. So we currently have 3 potential home teams that we can choose from right now.
It does, though. I think we're getting a new closest one coming up soon, because we also have the news that Blizzard is currently and actively pursuing the Milwaukee Bucks co-owner Wesley Edens, who is expected to purchase a team in the Overwatch League. The spot is not yet determined or decided. However, speculation and just general consensus says that Chicago is the likely location, and I think Chicago would be closer than Philly or New York.
No.
Correct?
No. Chicago's in a different time zone. It's 10 hours away.
I mean, time zones, yeah, but it's closer than Florida, which is in the same time zone. So,
well, I know that it's like over 10 hours away. I would not drive to Chicago if I didn't have to, but I would drive to any of those other cities.
All right. Well, I'm more inclined to root for a Chicago-based team than I am the other two. So that would be my current favorite city.
New York?
Yeah.
Oh, please.
I have rivals in all these cities for my 2 sports. Like I can't like Boston on spec. New York has the Jets in my division, and I mean, there's no hatred there, but it's just it would just feel awkward to me.
But I mean, the Jets are basically a New Jersey team.
It's true. Unless you ask them, then they won't admit to it. But yeah, so a lot of hype for Chicago, and basically everybody kind of in the central area of the country, as now there's a northern element to the Overwatch League in that regards. And yeah, so 2 spots for Texas, which is great to see, and hopefully Chicago gets wrapped up, or feel free to move it a little closer to us. Columbus, how does Columbus would be such a phenomenal esports city. I think it would be a shame for there not to be a team there. So that's definitely closer. That's definitely closer, and I would prefer Columbus to Toronto. So hopefully that happens.
There's no way. There's just no way. It's so much. It's a third of the way there. Toronto is literally 2 hours away. If that. Right. It's less than 2 hours.
Yeah.
But you have to cross the border. That's annoying. But it's still, I'm wearing a Raptors hat right now, so I 100% want.
I would settle for it, but I just don't. To me, I'm not trapped in a car. If me and you are driving to a match, like I'm enjoying the drive. Like I'm not miserable.
That's true. That's true.
So I don't mind a little extra distance to avoid the hassle of the border and all that stuff.
It's really not.
It's not super.
I mean, here's the thing.
It can be though, randomly.
Here's the thing though. If there's a Columbus and a Toronto team, we're just gonna go to both. Like
that's fair. Or I won't go with you to your favorite team, and you won't go with me to my favorite team, and then we'll just grow to hate each other slowly over time.
Yes.
Either way,
happened already. It's probably
either way. Either way, though, I think it would be a win for the listeners. Like if we grew to hate each other deeply over time because of our deep-seated Overwatch rivalries, then I think that would be a good thing overall for everybody listening.
That's true. We'd be more like
we'd hate it. Yeah, we'd hate it, but whatever.
Yeah. If we just
the show's not about us.
That's true. The show was never about us.
No.
Yeah, so definitely we're starting to get a nice little trickle of Overwatch League stuff coming in. So What do we know what we're at for confirmed teams right now, or like,
I do believe the
these
number's
three?
at 11. So
Okay.
I'm expecting one more and then it probably to close, though I would
Oh,
love to see
12?
14. Uh,
I feel like 16 is the next logical number.
you know what? No, we might be at 12 and then Chicago would be 13. I don't know. It was crazy. We were trying to figure it out earlier, and I don't know that we ever came to a consensus. And I'm actually working on getting a nice infographic made, or
Yep.
getting somebody to make it for us. It's really going to break down everything that we know from the Overwatch League. So when we get these little bits of news, I can just make one quick change to a graphic file, put it on the website, and everybody can find it there. So
Yeah.
keep an eye out for that. No matter how ugly it is, we will definitely put something up that has all your Overwatch League information in one place. Because it's hard for us to keep track of everything, and we're actively trying to pay attention to it. So we can't even imagine what the casual fan is trying to go through right now. ESPN has it listed with 13 at one in the works. The count gets tricky because sometimes I forget to count LA twice. So we will we will get down to the brass taxes and get the exact count for you. But
Yeah.
I'm expecting 14 to be the start of the league. So
Why would you
16
do
would be great.
14 and not 16.
Well, because that's $40 million they needed to find people to spend. So that's a bit of a thing. And it's still very possible. I think I really liked, I can't remember if it was Thorn or Crix or Icy that brought it up in the Discord, but we were having a conversation earlier, and I really like the idea of the Atlantic division, or Atlantic Conference and Pacific Conference. And you can kind of put the Asian teams in the Pacific Conference with the West Coast.
Right.
You can put London in the Atlantic Conference with the East Coast teams, and I think it's a really, really good way to divvy that up. And you've even got
all-star game like potential right there.
Yeah, and you've even got the ability to have some flexibility with that too, right? Because you've got like 3 teams right now, I think it is, just smack dab in the middle of the country if Chicago goes through, and then you've got 2 in Texas that could really just float either way. And I'm sure they hope they don't have to go to Korea, but nonetheless, they'll go wherever they have to.
Right. I mean, like, it doesn't necessarily matter for regionality, right? Like, not necessarily, because like the Yankees are an American League team, the Mets are a National League team, so like you can have it however you want. But definitely super exciting. This is what we've been waiting for this whole time, is like, we want this information. This is the stuff that I personally love. Even I mean, I like this even more than a lot of the matches, just because it's so interesting for me. And I mean, that and player salaries and whatnot, super exciting. We do talk a little bit about that. Actually, we talk about that in just a couple of minutes with the interview with Josh Kim, as well as with Logix as well. And actually a pretty different answer in terms of what they think for like a pretty wildly different answer, actually, in terms of what they think about for that. But we are going to jump over to the interview soon. Death, is there any last minute stuff that you want to get in there before we head on over to the interview?
No, I'll just disappear since I'm not in the interview. It feels bad, man.
But then you'll reappear at the end of the episode.
It's true. I'll be back.
That's true. Okay, guys, we're going to pass it over to myself and the Josh Kim, the team manager for Immortals. It's a great interview. I promise. I had a lot of fun. I believe Josh had a lot of fun too. So stick around, listen to that, and then we will be back in, I don't know how long it is, but the live viewers, it'll be a couple of seconds. Okay, see you guys. Thanks, Blevins. I always make that as awkward as possible every time. But we are here today, and thankful to be here today with the Josh Kim, who is the team manager for Immortals. Josh, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
No, thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Really appreciate it. So you are one of the first people we've had on the show that's not an active player right now, but is a different member of the organization. So we're super excited to get your insights, especially with Overwatch League and everything coming up, and to get your opinions and insights onto all things team related that aren't necessarily as deep into the game. So super excited about that.
Same here, same here.
Awesome. So let's just start it right off. So we start off every one of these interviews, whether player, CEO, analyst, what have you, no matter what, we started off with just the basic question of what's your gaming origin story?
Ooh, wow. Okay, so my first entertaining game was Microsoft Paint.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's when back in the day when I had nothing to do but a raggedy old computer, and you'd fill it with you'd get the paint bucket, make it black, and then get all these different colors and silly string it everywhere.
Nice.
But for real games, I would say something that I got really passionate in was Final Fantasy VII. That's like the storyline, the RPG that started it all. You had Pokemon, Game Boy. I was very much a strategy guide kind of guy. I used to love the backstories, and as much as figuring it out on my own was fun, but like knowing all the nooks and crannies, that was definitely fun for me. So Final Fantasy VII into StarCraft, like use map settings, and then all the Blizzard games, Diablo 2, Warcraft 3, use map Dota, and then World of Warcraft. I could keep going. Games were a part of my life all throughout my life.
Nice. Like the same story as many of us. So what we do, and this has nothing to do with what you just said, but we have like a little running competition of who has the craziest origin story. And the one that's currently in first was actually our first interview we ever did, and it was Adam Hoek, who actually made our outro music. His origin story was he started playing video games because there was a DJ at the Swedish Boys and Girls Club that he went to as a kid that was playing Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2, and he wanted to beat him at Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2.
That's awesome.
I know, right?
Dude, I remember book fairs where you'd buy like the cheat codes for old PlayStation games.
Yep.
And you try to do 900 off of that. Oh, I loved it. It's great. It's awesome.
It's tough to beat Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2. It has a place in many of our hearts. But moving on, so we got the intro for gaming. What got you specifically started with Overwatch?
Oh, that's a really long story. I'll try to make it as short as possible. So I mean, like, gaming was a part of my life all throughout, but it was never, a crux. It wasn't my end all be all. So I was, pursuing art, music, and all throughout high school, and then come college, I was.
Paint.
Yeah. Huh. And then I got into film for college and university, and that was great. But while I was doing that, I was doing a lot of odd jobs and freelance jobs in Korea because I was able to speak English for, impromptu casting events. And, one thing led to another. I was able to fill in for people that weren't able to do it since, for example, someone was sick. I go in and say, hey, can you cast this? Oh, I'll try. And then that went into like emceeing and hosting in events in China. And come graduation, I was contemplating. I was like, should I continue going to film? Or should I try to, I had my foot in the water for esports. Should I try to capitalize on this? And then that's around the time where Overwatch came out. I was like, all right, let's do it. Let's try it. And I just spread out all these like applications to all these different teams and crossed my fingers and hoped that somebody liked me. And, Noah Winston, the CEO of Immortals, definitely, took me under his wing. And here I am.
Nice. That's a pretty awesome story. So you started at MS Paint and now you're here.
Drew my destiny. Oh my god!
And the first time we're within the first 5 minutes of the episode, we've both thrown up. That is an achievement unlocked for sure. But just a little tidbit on Overwatch. So. Obviously, you are the team manager for Immortals. How much do you actually get to play, and what's your personal SR right now?
I don't really get to play all that much. I thought I played more. The coach, he's very good. He used to be a pro for Kongdu, and since the player's gonna be playing and he's gonna be analyzed, like on our off time, let's play together. He's like, yeah, sure. He made an American account. and that was 3 months ago. Mind you, that's when we came to America, and we've never played together. So, so occasionally I'll play, but there's no fun in it for me because it's work, and you have to play with your friends. It's very much a social thing to make it fun. So my personal SR right now, it's like 2200.
Yeah, I wish I could say I'm much better, but I'm not. I'm currently playing my placement matches right now, and I'm starting to get pared down into like gold, and like I'm pretty sure there might have even been a bronze in my last match, but
it's all right. It's all right. It's as long as you're able to have fun. Hey, we can play together.
That's true. Add me on BattleNet. We'll swap BattleNet IDs after this.
Let's do it. Oh my god.
I don't know why I said it in that voice. I actually want to do that.
Yeah, but you did influence me. I mimicked you right away.
There we go. Perfect. So let's move on and talk a little bit more about Immortals specifically. So we had a question from the High Noon Podcast Discord channel, which remind me to get you a link to that, because you are forever, regardless of whether you want to be or not, you are forever a friend of the podcast, and you will be you're always welcome into the Discord channel, even though it's open to the public. You didn't hear that part. You get a special
something just whispered in my ear. Something about public. Can't put my finger on.
Pay no attention to the man behind the green curtain. But we had a question from RoboDuck to just kind of describe your role and duties with Immortals right now.
A lot of things are changing, and rightfully so, because evolution, right? I mean, like, we have to get with the times. But mainly, my job here is to the paperwork side would be scheduling, talking with other teams, making sure that our team, Immortals, is able to practice every day, and then outside of practices, make sure they have a good exercise regimen, make sure they eat, and then when they have rests or days off, make sure they actually get rest and days off. Try not to make it boring, and still try to keep a fun environment, and also try to even when you're playing at home, there's a lot of things to stress out about. That's not going to change when you go into a team house. So I try to mitigate the stress, and basically the first filter for problems. That's basically what a manager does.
Nice. And we had a little bit of a sub question as well from Thornrain from our Discord channel, who wondered, do you imagine it's going to be a little bit different, or maybe the same once Overwatch League starts?
Oh, it has to be different. Why wouldn't it be different? The scale of it gets so much bigger, and if the scale gets bigger, then obviously the pieces get bigger, and if the pieces get bigger, then the moving parts, et cetera, it's just a chain effect, and we have to stay with the times, get with the times, and evolve and stay alive, and keep our heads above water. So definitely, I do agree that once Overwatch League does come around, it's gonna be a storm.
I mean, we're kind of even seeing almost the eye of the storm right now, where a lot of organizations, and even as down to the player level, just don't know what to do with themselves. It's like, do I practice really hard with one team and try to win these tournaments, or do I market myself as a free agent? It's just kind of a crazy time in Overwatch.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah. So moving on, kind of a two-part question. When did you sign with Immortals, and were you involved at all with the selection of the current roster?
Yes. Indirectly and directly, in a sense. Well, I joined Immortals late April, and at that time I was only a trial, because you want to see if I'm actually capable and competent. So I was trying with Immortals and doing my best. I was able to speak both English and Korean, and at the time I was in Korea. So I was able to meet with and talk with Korean coaches, Korean players, and I was given the responsibility to scout, I guess, and find as much information as possible. And in terms of players, that came by with the help of our coach. We got a Korean coach named Dong-uk, His name is Ooks, formerly by the name of Pinky. He used to be on Kongdu before they split into Kongdu Panthera and Uncia. He actually played with Bishop as well. Bishop and Ooks, they were on the same team. Ooks was the Lucio for Kongdu. And then he quickly became coach right afterwards and was the coach for Rhinos Gaming. Now, through him, we were able to scout out Korean Fate. And, you know, we had interviews and talks back and forth across the Pacific Ocean, and pieces aligned, and here we have the Immortals roster.
I see. So it was almost like a networking sort of acquisition, really.
Well, kind of, sort of. I mean, like, I feel like it was very basic and fundamental. Like, we definitely went through the steps to, you know, talk with the teams and the managers and the coaches first, and then see if they're open to it. Then it goes down to the players, ask and see if they're comfortable, and so on and so forth. So, yeah, I feel like networking is now a very funny term in the sense that it's necessary. You got to have the ability to talk with people in the community, right?
Yeah.
If you want to call that networking, then exactly.
It's like one of those things that they like don't really focus that much on in school, but it's like the most focused on thing once you're out in the real world.
Yeah, I mean, like, when you're out of school and out in the real world, all you can do is talk, you know? You have to get people skills, and that's basically what it is.
Absolutely. And speaking of people skills, actually, that was a terrible transition. It has almost nothing to do with people skills. Like I said, barely literate. So what is it like working with a multilingual group? Is there, you know, is everyone speaking English? Is there a kind of a gap there or a barrier?
Actually, I would say that was a pretty good segue. Yes and no, but mostly yes, because languages are not just you know, words and letters. It's also culture and the way people think, right? In order for you to be able to understand a language fully is if you're able to put yourself in their shoes and think the way they do, and then you speak the way they do, right? So at first, you know, it wasn't too bad. We didn't see that big of a gap because everyone was giving each other the benefit of the doubt and, you know, trying to actively understand each other. So in the beginning, the Western players were able to try to incorporate Korean into their vernacular, very easy things. And then the Korean players, we didn't expect them to know any English at all. And that was beneficial for us because, you know, when they came by and they actually spoke a little bit of English, it was like, oh, good.
Yeah.
We're actually better than where we expected to start. So at first, we didn't think it was that big of a deal. But then lately, I realize it's actually a prevalent obstacle. It's something that really needs to be like sat down and talked with amongst each other and between the coach and players, and because you don't want any misconceptions or assumptions going into a game or after you're done with the game, you know, because like I mentioned before, it's very much a cultural thing and the way you think versus the way you speak.
Right. So these are challenges that you're actively dealing with now.
Right. It's fun, I would say. It definitely is a challenge, and who doesn't like challenges if you're in the gaming community, right? So it's very welcome, but definitely want to beat it soon.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll talk a little bit more about the current situation for Immortals in Contenders. And actually, we'll just jump right into that now. So obviously, Immortals wins Season 0 of Contenders. So expectations are obviously very high for Season 1. Do you have any input on what's been different between Season 0 and Season 1 so far?
I would definitely say quality of passion. Season 0 was a little bit different for everyone, I think, in terms of, well, if we're just going to be talking about the NA scene.
Sure.
I mean, the fact is, you know, Envy and Rogue, we're not Envious and Rogue, since we have a player named Envy. I want to make that clear. Envious and Rogue were not in America at the time. And so I feel like I do want to commend and congratulate the boys here playing in Immortals. They took that as, you know, a very small advantage and ran with it. Good, great. But with Rogue and MBS coming back, and also the shakeup in the scene with Overwatch League, and teams being dropped, and so on and so forth, everyone who doesn't have a spot, and all these players that haven't been signed, have now this intense hunger to prove themselves. And that's something that's been missing for I won't say missing, but that's something that is a huge aspect in Korean gaming, right? Everyone wants to prove themselves all throughout Korean history and esports and so on and so forth. And we have a taste of that in NA now. And that definitely caught a lot of teams off guard. And it's good to see. I really like it. It's definitely a step in the right direction for season 1.
Yeah, it's really nice as a viewer and even an analyst in some aspects to see real passion for, like, there's stakes here. We need to do something. We need to get this. It's really exciting to see that.
Exactly.
So I saw that Noah Winston posted a video about the Overwatch League teams having to change names for Overwatch League.
Right.
Blizzard announced that the organizations are not going to be able to keep the same names, like Immortals or Cloud9, for instance. And my opinion is still kind of muddled. I don't know where I stand on it, so I'm not gonna place an opinion here. But do you have any idea or thoughts on what the Overwatch team name is going to be, or how you're going to choose it? Or...
I mean, it's fun to think about, I guess. When the news came out, I was like, oh, that's cool. And then I didn't think about it at all because, frankly, I had so many other things to worry about.
Yeah.
But if I were to take some time and, like, actually take a breather and think about it, we're in LA, we're in California, we got earthquakes. This is my first time in California. I've been in here for 3 months, so I mean, that's the only thing that I know of it. So maybe the earth. Oh, we could go the humble route and be like the LA faults. Try to go that run, go for the underdog look.
Nice.
I have no idea though. I really have no clue what it could be. There's definitely a lot of room for creativity, but if anything, I would like a strong name, and something that is not just meaningless, something very symbolic. That's what I like to go for. Something that has meaning,
Yeah, I like it, but I'm just gonna say that if it does end up being the LA Faults, I'm going to say that we spoiled it here first. Retroactively, yeah, it is your fault. Oh, got him. I like
I'm so sorry.
Spoiled, fired. Get him. Love it. So let's shift. I mean, we've kind of been talking a little bit about Overwatch League, but let's shift focus entirely over to Overwatch League. So what are either your goals or maybe the goals for Immortals in general, for Overwatch League, either short term or long term?
I mean, it's very simple, because it's a vision of Immortals. The general theme is always look at the long term. We want sustainability and foundation. So what that essentially means is, if you want to be able to weather the storm, you need to have a sturdy foundation. Like your centerpiece, the center beam has to be really sturdy to be able to withstand the losses. Essentially, you cannot make a team thinking that you'll win all the time, right? So short term, I guess if we're talking about the difference between short term and long term, you have to constantly repeat the short term memory, and it becomes long-term memory, right? Similar in that sense that if you keep winning, then in the long term you create a winning foundation. But I feel like that's a little bit dangerous and risky. We have to think about the long-term sustainability versus winning. Like, winning will come later. Right now we have to make sure that we will be able to continue a longer string of wins, a longer consecutive reign of wins, as opposed to volatile, like day by day. Just got to create the strong cement to keep it from falling apart.
Makes sense. And there's been, I mean, there's been a lot of talk even on our own show about, you know, should, or what would you do if you owned a team? Would you try to absolutely make sure that you are like champion #1 of Overwatch League, or do you want that, like, you know, dynasty, that multi-year dynasty? And it seems like Immortals is more on the multi-year dynasty, kind of really looking longer out. I went for the just spike season 1 and then drop out of the league. But then again, I am not an owner for a reason.
Well, I mean, you're doing a good job with, you know, continuing on the storyline, which is essentially what everyone looks to do, right? So you just pick that storyline and you got to go with it. It's fine.
Go out in a blaze of glory is my storyline.
Exactly.
So I'm not going to make any assumptions here. So has there been any decision on what the Overwatch League roster is going to be versus what the current Immortals roster is? Is there any thought process behind that, or is it still all up in the air?
It's not up in the air, but it's also not like, whoa, we need to change everything. It's what it is, you know, you have to be very careful with your surroundings, right? You have to adjust your current situation to what's going on the outside, right? You know, just because we've had a string of losses recently, it is not a sign of alarm. It doesn't mean that we're going to make drastic changes, drop the entire team, pick up a new one. That's too brash. That's too not even risky. That's just not thinking things through, you know?
Yeah. Oh, I know all about that.
Yeah. So, as much as Overwatch League and Blizzard is taking it step by step, there's no reason for us to not follow suit and also take it step by step and make sure that each step we take is a sturdy one by, you know, looking around the surroundings, make sure there aren't any loose rocks or snakes ready to bite us, and then put that foot down and go forward.
That makes a lot of sense. That was a very good answer. But I wanted you to just say who's cut and who are you cut. No.
Okay, fine. I'm leaving.
It's me. I'm cutting myself from the team right now.
Team play.
Makes sense. So a little bit of a change, but so we've talked to a couple of folks, mostly players at this point, about what their opinions are on handling the bench, so to speak, for Overwatch League. So in Overwatch League, Blizzard announced you're allowed to have up to 12 players on your roster. So I just wanted to get kind of an idea of what your philosophy as the team manager for Immortals. What is your philosophy on using those, players 7 to 12, so to speak?
I don't really actually concern myself about how it's managed per se, because I manage the players regardless of whether or not I have 6 to 12, but how it runs within in-game and out-of-game practice, scrims, tournaments, that's all on the coach and the coaching staff. Let's say we have 12 players, then I just have more mouths to worry about and more brains to worry about, and so on and so forth. That's basically it for me. If I were to speak on behalf of the coach, I'm sure he has to create a fair practice regimen so that each player can essentially effectively vie for the starting position and not feel shafted, right? They have to feel validated and also reassured that it's not because of any bias.
Right.
I just imagine that if it goes from 7 to 12, it's just gonna get harder. And the one thing I do know for sure is once it gets to 12 people, then just having one coach is not gonna cut it anymore. You're going to need more staff to be able to handle that much firepower.
Makes sense. And some of the things we heard were, some of the suggestions or I guess ideas were, obviously you can have just your starting 6 and then either subs, depending on how Blizzard allows swaps to happen, either in between matches or in between maps or what have you. We've heard of just having your starting six and then maybe like some specialists, like maybe a really good Widowmaker player or something like that. Or we've also heard like just have two completely independent teams that are going, one may start against Envy and one may start against Rogue, depending on what you feel. So it's just kind of interesting. I'm imagining it's probably going to be different from team to team, but have you heard any sort of thoughts on in terms of that, or is that all kind of on the coaching?
No, I mean, like, first and foremost, the subbing structure needs to be set. And I feel like that needs a lot of testing, to be honest with you. This is like just me, personal thoughts. Because I've watched a lot of esports, I've watched a lot of sports as well, and the subbing culture in esports, it's not like within the game, it's like, hey, pause, let's sub. It's more of, once it's done, then the next game, let's put someone in. I suppose traditional sports, it's halfway through, you're able to pause and be like, wait a second, he looks tired, let's put him in, right? And contrasting these two styles, I'm curious as to what approach Overwatch would want to go. Because let's say we go into the whole specialist route and get a Widow specialist, and we go into the traditional esports subbing. Let's say that person's name pops up in the beginning of the match. You already know what the specialist is going to do. So, like, the strategy is already shown to the public. Like, what does that create? So I'm curious as to see how they're going to be able to do it. If it's going to be dynamic, if there is going to be a pause or not, if you're able to have them just, like, switch in and out really quick. Like, maybe on the stage, all 12 players are there.
Some people running around the stage.
Yeah. I don't know how it's going to be, but I'm very excited to see how they want to incorporate it, because that will change up how coaches will start coaching. And that will also change up a lot of the meta outside of the game, the strategy meta, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think what should happen is all the names should just be blanked out and all the players should be wearing masks the whole time. So you just have no idea who's playing at any time. It's just completely...
And then, at the end of it, they take off their masks.
And
turns out, oh my gosh, imagine they just switched jerseys and it actually, you thought Immortals won, but it was actually someone else. Crazy. Drama.
Mind blown. Mind blown. I mean, you heard it here first, folks. I think that's should be if anyone from Overwatch League is listening, they should heed this advice.
So I'm excited to see how they're going to do the subbing thing.
Yeah, I mean, we've been talking about it for a while on the show as well. It's one of those ones where it's like we can only speculate so much until they tell us what the rules are, and then we can speculate wildly.
Just hit my shin on the desk. Ooh.
All right. Another one goes down on High Noon Podcast. What are some of the qualities that you value most in a player when you're recruiting for either Overwatch League or for Immortals? And some of the conversations you had in Korea with some of the players, like what are you actually looking for when you're scouting for players?
This is such a simple answer, and it's such an obvious one too. But a lot of people don't really think about. Well, no, people do think about it, but it's not actually open to the as public as I thought it would be. Okay, so let's take basketball for example. There's this one YouTube video with Kyrie Irving. He's Uncle Drew, and he's like, in the beginning, he's like, yo. You got to know the basics, the fundamentals. And then once you get that down, then you start breaking them, right? And so on and so forth. Yeah. So the basics and fundamentals is mechanics and, having good aim. And that's just natural at this point.
Right.
All pro players need to be good mechanically. What separates the good from the bad? It's those that put in the work. For example, you have your stars like Kobe Bryant and LeBron James and like Michael Jordan, who are naturally gifted, yes. But that doesn't make them who they are. They're naturally gifted, plus they work their butts off, their tushies off, right? They're always in the practice room. They're always doing that. And that's the same for esports. No matter how talented you are, no matter how gifted you are, you can't get ahead of yourself and think, oh, I don't need to review VODs. I don't need to practice all these different heroes, and I don't need to prepare for the next meta because I'm just this good. Pfft. No, what I look for, or what everyone should be looking for and should be striving to do, is if they want to be the best, they have to really compete with themselves and not get complacent. And so that's a hard worker. That's all, well, a very large portion of what what my coach, our coach, what Immortals looks for.
Makes a lot of sense. And we actually talked with Devin, the CEO for CLG, about like what he's looking for players when they originally signed their Overwatch team. And it's like, yeah, I mean, you can find top tier mechanical players. They're a dime a dozen. There's a ton of people at this point that are really good at the game, but it's the strive and the work ethic and the atmosphere that's really what's important and what pushes them, kind of over the top.
Exactly.
So do you know how Immortals and maybe you specifically and the coaching staff are going to be using either Contenders or the Overwatch Open Series for like scouting for Overwatch League? Do you know kind of how you're going to be using those like lower tier, like the minor league, so to speak?
I don't yet. It hasn't really gone into motion so far. With the facts that are set, let's say there is a Contenders, there is Open. That just means there are more stages to perform for more people. With those facts, that's great. That's more opportunities for people to showcase their abilities and be able to present themselves out there. So yes, it is definitely a positive for scouting. So with that being said, obviously we probably will use it for scouting, not just us, but everybody. But other than that, it's hard to say exactly what else it's going to bring and bring to fruition.
Yeah, we've been wondering if like there's going to be like a farm system where like there might be the Overwatch League Immortals, which obviously will be renamed the LA Faults, like we spoiled earlier today. And then like Immortals Overwatch, like still Immortals in Contenders. There might be like I don't know. It'd be interesting to see that.
It would be interesting. I mean, like sort of have, your D-League team, and same thing, similar with Apex and Challengers series and so on and so forth. That would be cool. But and yet again, once it's out, then we're able to work with it. But we're not able to make anything with imaginary clay.
I'm just trying to pull some hidden information here. Really, no.
Oh, I'm telling you right now. I'm as honest as
I know.
I did. Like all you know is everything that I know.
I see. That was that weird beam of light that happened when you started the Skype call. I get it. Yeah. I understood it all. So actually, speaking of Apex, what are your thoughts on the Luxury Watch Blue situation with them pulling out of Apex and dropping Luna and with Sylph retiring?
I do not have anything to say about the Luna Sylph situation. I just don't really concern myself about that as much as people in the public do, because it's just not in my place to,
Sure.
I don't have to worry about it. But Luxury Watch Blue dropping out of Apex and coming to America, that's something that's huge. That's something that's I'm really excited for, because it brings Korean players to NA ranked system, and now people will be able to get a taste of what it actually feels like to have more Koreans there and create this competition. But it's also a case study to see what is going to happen to them. Like, will the Korean culture spread into America, or will the American rank system swallow them up? It's one or the other, isn't it? So I'm excited to see what's going to happen. After they stay in North America and they play, let's say they do win. This is just a hypothetical situation. Let's say they do win, and then they go back to Korea to play with Korean teams and see how they fare after a year or two. You know, I'm just excited to see what's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean that's really what people have been saying ever since we first saw Korean teams start forming. Like, what's going to happen? Are the Korean teams going to come over and dominate like they tend to do in many other esports titles, or you know?
And so my speculation is, I gave you both sides, both cases, either a positive effect on NA ranked or a negative effect onto the Korean team because of, I think, infrastructure in terms of society. I feel that perhaps they will not bring a positive impact onto the NA ranked ecosystem because of, I believe that Korean players are good because they play in Korea. Yeah.
It makes sense. It definitely makes sense. So on that note, how, I mean, maybe not a number, but I don't know how you would answer this necessarily. A number might not be the right way to answer, but how many Koreans do you expect to see in Overwatch League for season 1?
Well, at least you got 6, and then you got 3 on our team, right? So that's already, and then and then a few outliers here and there on different teams. So you're already at double digits at 10. So I would say, and then I'd say 12 teams times 6, 12 times 6, 5, 72. I'd say maybe like 30 to 40 players, 30 to 40 Koreans will probably make the transition into NA, I think. Why do you ask? I feel like I just gave just a number for an answer.
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things where once Overwatch League got announced, people were already talking about like, oh, we need to have region locking, or oh, region locking is the stupidest thing ever. A lot of people fell on one side of the boat, or one side of the the one side or another, and a lot of people speculated that, oh, well, if we don't have region locking, then the Korean teams are just going to come over to NA and completely engulf the NA scene. That's what a lot of people have said. So that's kind of where that question comes from.
This is true. I mean, like, with that being said, I haven't really thought about that. I was just really thinking about, numbers. I mean, that's really tough to say. I doubt all the spots in Overwatch League will be filled with Koreans,
right? Because
that's just not really a pretty sight to see, But at the same time, skill and results do speak their own.
Right.
They have their own weight, right? So that is a hard question. I wish I could give you a good one and something spicy and exciting, but yeah, man, you got me stumped.
Hey, it's all good. I mean, so just to give you a little bit of perspective on what Deathblow, my co-host, and I have said, it's just like, if you're worried about Koreans taking over Overwatch League and NA, just be better at the game. Like, if the NA players are worried about Koreans taking their spots, it's like, just be better. Like, there's, as far as I know, there's nothing inherent about being from Korea that makes you inherently better at the game of Overwatch. So just practice more, work with your team, be better at the game. That's kind of what, like, from our perspective, we just want to see the best teams playing. I personally don't care, where you're from. I just want to see good Overwatch.
I do want to say though, I think you're probably going to see full Korean teams a lot, more so than a mix of Korean teams, because I mean, like, if they're able to fix that language barrier, I'm going to talk about the language barrier a little bit on this point, because one, Koreans are good at games because of team games, because the infrastructure. It's a social thing. Games are a social event. You're able to talk with your friends about it. You're able to go to PC cafes with friends about it. And it's very much a we thing versus a me thing. And on top of that, the language itself is very different from English in the sense that you're able to provide more information with less syllables than compared to English. So translate that to Overwatch, where information is so much power.
Yeah.
I think this is just a long, long case study. After 3-4 years, the top established teams will most likely be full Koreans, and there will be some teams that will try to break that without that kind of infrastructure. But I'm excited to see if someone will be able to topple that. But it's definitely a hard, it's a big cookie to crumble.
Yeah, it will certainly be interesting one way or the other, and I will be here along for the ride to watch it all happen.
Yeah, same here. Yeah.
Awesome. So let's shift gears a little bit. A few days ago, we got the official word of the first real signing of a player. That was Sinatra for NRG for $150K for a 17-year-old. So congratulations to him.
Yeah, big news.
Yeah, it is huge news, especially for us in the podcast realm, and this is kind of my bread and butter, is talking about the almost the non-game stuff about Overwatch and Overwatch League. But does that signing coming out officially, does that affect the remainder of contracts? Is that affecting how Immortals is structuring contracts with players and negotiating and whatnot?
I don't touch contracts and finance and any of that stuff, but I love talks of money in terms of just sports in general.
Yeah.
It adds so many layers to a player's value and how someone is evaluated, not just from within the organization, from within the players themselves, the player community, but outside in the public as well. Because then you're able to scrutinize, you're able to see, and then you're able to apply a different kind of pressure, and it adds a completely different level of maturity to the game that now is incorporated into Overwatch, is incorporated into esports, which, now we're able to have trading windows, and now we're able to, it just, I was so happy when it happened. I was like, oh my God, yes. Now people will be able to make comparisons. And, that's the entire thing with trading cards too. Back in the day, it was like, this Charizard is worth so much.
Yep. I
I will give you 50 cards for this Charizard. Boom, drop it on the table. And then everyone's just like, oh, I'm excited. I'm excited, man. And also, I'm excited for the growth of players and the maturity that's going to be involved, because 17 years old, 18 years old, making $150,000 a year. Now you're not able to just play games. You have to be serious now.
Right.
Same thing with sports as well. You can't just ride the coattails and spray money on yourself. Now you got to be serious. You got to be serious, or else it won't last.
Right.
And no pressure on you, Sinatra. I think you're a good player. You'll do well as long as your head's in the game, as long as everyone's head's in the game, everyone's working hard and willing to take up that responsibility and that pressure that everyone wants to see people succeed in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm kind of glad that you don't have any actual, you don't actually have anything formally to do with contracts, because I'd be worried about you revealing something that you're not supposed to reveal.
Oh.
So now we can just talk about whatever. So we have the oh man, okay. We have 2 injuries now.
Same shit.
Are these the hired Immortals thugs saying that you shouldn't be talking about contracts and talking good about Sinatra on an opposing team?
That's next level. They bought me a desk that would periodically teach me a lesson. Wow. What were we talking about?
So player salary. So we were talking actually on the episode we recorded earlier today, which for future podcast people would be 2 episodes ago. I podcast time travel is always such a weird thing. We're talking about where do we think this Sinatra signing, in terms of how big the contract is, falls in relation to either the rest of his team or just the rest of Overwatch League. Do you think that this $150,000 a year for a Sinatra level player, is that a top tier contract? Is that like going to be a standard good player contract? Is it going to be the norm for most players?
no.
Or do you like what are your thoughts on where that
I'm really
lies?
excited to think about this because up until now, I didn't think about it. But let's sit and put our heads together. Okay, ready? So, $50,000 a year is the minimum, right?
League
Is that the minimum for Overwatch?
Yep.
Yeah, that's the league minimum. So he's getting 3 times that. So what values him to be 3 times the minimum? His age. Let's talk about age. He's 17, so he's not able to play in Overwatch League up until
Right. He's
later
missing like
on.
half of the season or something like that.
Right. Okay. And even so, it's 150,000. All right. So where does that times 3 come from? Skill. All right. So mechanics. Well, we said that's fundamental. That's basics. Let's say he already has mechanics. Let's say potential. So where does the potential lie? Is he able to play a lot of heroes? Well, yes, he's young, so therefore he's able to invest time into learning different heroes and metas that might come out. Sure. But that's the case for a lot of the players all throughout the community. So does that mean that they're all 150,000? All right, let's add another aspect to it. Let's say his comms are great, because we were talking about how you need to have good communication skills. Or let's say he's very coachable. And that's something that's extremely valuable, I think. So, I mean, like, this is all stuff that everybody could think about, not just me, but everyone out in the public. You think, and which is why I was so excited and thankful for, the disclosure of the price of Sinatra. It really creates a standard. I would think that 150,000 is a pretty big sum. Because you have to think that if there's minimum wage, then there are going to be players that will be paid minimum wage, and what percent of that? What percent is that going to be? So 150,000, maybe a heavy hitter. Sinatra's got a lot ahead of him. Perhaps though we'll see like $1 million contract. Who knows?
Yeah, that would be crazy.
It's just the start.
I'm just wondering who would be $1 million contract. I mean, I know, I just have a soft spot in my heart for Tavik, aka the old back in the old days Pluppy on his alternate account back in closed beta. If I own the team, again, we already know how my team. Yeah, go ahead.
I'll tell you straight up who would be $1 million. I'm not going to name a name. I'm going to tell you what that $1 million person needs. Let's say plays every single hero extremely well. Tier 1. Like, a lot of people are self-proclaimed Tier 1. No, I mean can wreck everybody in every hero. Is young and is mature. Does not tilt and is able to be a leader. Let's say you're able to have all 5 of those. 100%. You'll be the most wanted player, and you're also able to speak the language or the languages of the team. That's above and beyond. Every single team will want you, and that's going to be the standard.
Well, you heard it here first, folks. All prospective Overwatch League players, if you want that sweet $1 million contract that may or may not exist, you can make it exist. So yeah, I think this is like probably the most exciting thing for me is this part of Overwatch League. So one of the last things I wanted to talk about, and this is a little bit off topic to the salary, but is there anything? And this is from another one of our Discord members, Crickles. Is there anything about either the broadcasting or viewing experience that you would like to see changed? Is there anything that you think that they could do better to make it more either watchable or what have you?
I got so much to say about this.
Go.
Hold on.
The floor is yours.
All right, let's see. I'd have to say value. Value is the most important. What does that mean? Information. I told you before, within the game, relaying the most information, the most valuable information is most important, right? I want to hear more. I want better information relayed to me throughout streams. that goes to say for the observers, I guess, but also analysis of or play by play and color, etc., etc. What do I want before a fight happens? You know, let's say what to expect, and once you know what to expect, then once a fight does occur, then it's did that happen or what changed, and within those changes, what was outstanding, right? These are the things that you want to look for. Um, and meanwhile, still keep it casual. Right now, it's just too casual in terms of, okay, I'll give you an example. I'll give you an example of our team. A lot of people, you know, Agilities is a very good player. A lot of people know about Agilities. I love Agilities, so I love everybody on our team. Agilities is no exemption. But sometimes people only see Agilities. And I don't want to take anything away from him. But at the same time, I don't want to take away anything from the other players because it is a team game. Some people need to realize that sometimes Genji will get those 6Ks, right? Because the hero itself enables that. So is that really valuable information? Even in soccer or football, as we call it internationally, sometimes the goal itself isn't the most exciting thing. It's the pass that got there. It's like, how did he get the ball there? That's just incredible vision. That's incredible sight, and that's skill in itself. Once we're able to get to that level of analysis and vision, then I think it's going to be a little bit more fun. Also, that not just in the casting and the analysis scene, but also in the public scene as well. Once people are able to see that, then it'd be fun, I think.
I agree. Although, are you trying to tell me that FaZe has more players than just Shadowburn? Because if that's the case, I just don't believe you. I don't think that's true.
FaZe is a very good team. I like FaZe. Yeah, Shadowburn is a great player, but everyone on that roster, they work their butts off, and yeah, big shout out to them. Whooped our butts. Definitely give us a hard time. So, yeah, man, Shadowburn, kudos, but also everyone else on the team.
For sure. So that's actually all I've got for you. That was probably one of our most jam-packed interviews. Is there any other either topics that you want to talk about or shout-outs or what have you? The floor is yours. Have at it.
I mean, like, shameless plug, shout-outs to our sponsors, HP, Bloody Gaming, our chair sponsor, Elo Chairs. Also, Immortals as the organization. They're really, as much as I'm part of Immortals, I'm also a human being that tried to apply to different teams. And Immortals is an organization that is very much about family and looking out for the people as opposed to the players or the staff. We're all people and humans at the same time. So shout out to Immortals and shout out to the community as well. I mean, as much as there are a lot of naysayers, the reason why you say it is because it's so close to your heart, so near and dear, and it's something that you don't want to see fail. So I just soldier on and hope that it all comes to good, because it will. You just gotta have a little bit of faith. And thank you, High Noon Podcast, for having me here, and our 8 Twitch viewers.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's about it for me. Unless you got questions, like any personal questions, you could ask me my Battle.net, my tag later.
I'll hit you up after we drop out. But again, the Josh Kim, the team manager for Immortals, thank you so much for being on High Noon Podcast. Again, you are forever a friend of the podcast. Come hell
the
or
public
high
Discord.
Water. Yes, the public Discord. The special invite to the. Well, okay, it'll be an invite to the public Discord, but I'll give you a fancy title and a cool color. So everything will be awesome. But again, Josh, I had a blast. I hope you at least didn't hate yourself the whole time, even though you literally bashed your shin against your
No,
disc.
it was really fun. It was worth it. No pain, no what is there a saying? No pain, no glory?
Nah,
right?
Is no idea what you're talking about. But
no pain, no gain.
There it is. There it is. We got to it. All right, everyone. I'm gonna pass it back to future past Blevins and Deathblow, and they're going to finish out the rest of this episode, and Twitch chat will be back in just a second. Thanks again, Josh.
No, thank you. It was my pleasure.
Okay, that was one of the more fun interviews that I've done ever.
One of the most awkward pauses in between.
No, I did
leaving
that so that
space.
it took me forever to find the space last time when I was editing, so now I have sound in there so that I can just look at the sound spike.
I was telling you, clap, because it'll be super loud.
The
Anyways,
snap was
anyways,
great,
we'll
and then
talk
me-
about that.
And then me saying the word "sound" really loud was really great. See, the viewers liked it. But that's gonna be it, guys. Again, this is the last super episode, so enjoy it while you can. If for some reason you really, really, really love the super episodes, just write a we'll say 500-word double-spaced essay and send it to us on Discord. I'll look over it and then probably delete it and not change the episode. No, but
And hey, if you do like the super episodes and you're sad to see them go, join the Discord. We ask a lot. We ask for feedback when we change things about the show. At least I am personally always very nervous to change anything about the show because I don't know if people like it and we're gonna create any problems.
Yeah.
So we always ask for feedback. Almost always ask for feedback before we change something, and we want your input. So if you have an opinion on the show, you listen every week. Even if you download and don't listen and don't have an opinion, but just want to yell at us for stuff, join the Discord channel. You can find the link on the website.
yeah, I mean, all of everything, almost everything that's suggested, we take into consideration and listen to, and at least right now, almost everything that's suggested gets put in. Like, we put in the match ticker because of feedback from you guys. We've got,
We're going to try to look into adding stats when we interview players so that you're looking at their stats on the screen while we talk to them.
Right. I believe the Master Overwatch overlay should be up on Twitch right now if you're watching live. I don't know how it works, so I didn't look into it, but I have it enabled. So all that stuff, anything that you want to see, anything that you think would be awesome, shoot, anyone that you'd want to see on the show, let us know. We have built up, because of A. Smith, we've built up a nice little resume in terms of player cred that we have. So we're talking to players, asking them to reach out to other players on their team for us and kind of open that door. And it's been a whole lot of fun and a great experience so far. Shout outs again, A. Smith. Literally, we cannot. At some point, we're going to stop thanking you for all the work that you do, and that's our fault. We shouldn't. So if we do, our apologies. But it's super appreciated. You are a phenomenal asset to the team, my man. Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
So
we'll get the Master Overwatch plugin actually working next time. But it's installed.
You might have to enable it or something. I don't know. We can troubleshoot that later. But that's gonna be it, guys. Head on over to highnoonpodcast.com. All the links are gonna be there. Join the Discord. Leave us an iTunes review. All that good stuff. If you want to support us financially, that's always an option. You never have to. The episodes will always be free, but you can head on over to patreon.com/highnoonpodcast. It really is going to be, in the future, it's going to be helping us actually travel to the Overwatch League events, which we absolutely are planning to do, whether we have money from Patreon or not. It's going to happen some number of times. We're trying to go to events. We're upgrading equipment and doing all that good stuff, doing giveaways and all that as well. So if that's something that you want to do, you'll also get a cool little snazzy title in Discord, but you never have to. You can, in fact, just head on over to highnoonpodcast.com, hit the Discord.
If you want to help us out and you can't help us financially, a great way to do it is with an iTunes review, like the 5-star review that we have from the man Thornrain, finally hitting us up with the review.
Whoop, whoop.
He said, High Noon was the first podcast I ever listened to, and ever since I was hooked to the point that the guys on the show inspired me to start my own small show and explore other podcasts. Always remember the guys love Overwatch-themed pastries, so share your pictures with them. Specifically
God,
the Blevins. Specifically, make sure you tweet all of your Overwatch baked goods to @the_Blevins on Twitter.
Yeah. I still, every once in a while, I still get them. It's still, and it's still just as annoying.
That meme has lasted way longer than the Genji I need healing meme ever has.
That's true, but not nearly as long as the referencing Halo on the show countdown countdown ticker. Which
You did it again.
I know, I did it on purpose.
Zero.
That's what you
Zero
get.
episodes.
That's what you get for mentioning the cupcakes. But again,
Don't care. Bills win. Pats lost.
yeah. Okay, we're rambling on. That's our signature to do the stupid outro, overlong outros, and go on tangents. That's going to be it, guys. Again, HighNoonPodcast.com has everything. Huge thanks to all the listeners, all the fans. Huge thanks to A. Smith. Huge thanks to Thorn Rain. Overwatch Today. Matt Chirino for putting us up on SoundCloud, so all the SoundCloud users can thank Matt Chirino for that. Huge thanks to Adam Hoek for putting together the awesome outro. McCree music you're going to hear in just a second. That is actually going to be it, guys. I am the Blevins for Deathblow. Remember, it's High Noon.
Got his boots and he put on his hat. Threw the coin away that same day. It's in his past and he's not looking back. He says, finding mine now guides my way. He's not good, but he sure ain't bad. He'll make amends for the sins that he has. He says, I'll change the world one bullet at a time till I find mine.
Soldier says, ripping a fat vape during the pre-show is approved.